Ask the Messengers TV show is a TV show that educates, informs, and entertains our viewers on public health issues such as mental illness, suicide, addiction, illness and disease, COVID-19 relief, crime, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, employment opportunities, healthcare, and more. And now, Ask the Messengers.
It was Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history, who initiated a designated time to promote and educate people about Black history and culture on February 7, 1926. This week-long celebration was eventually recognized as Black History Month by President Gerald Ford in 1976. Black History Month is a time to honor the contributions and legacy of African Americans, from activists and civil rights pioneers to leaders in industry, politics, science, culture, and more. Today on Ask the Messengers, we shine the spotlight on a few who were the first to break the color barriers. Plus, we remember the legacy of a true pioneer who dedicated his life service to helping those suffering from addictions right here in Detroit. Gone but never forgotten, Dr. Calvin Trent Jr. But first, things that matter, with my co-hosts, Jacinta Siobhan and Derek Thompson. Ask the Messengers begins now. I'm so happy to have our co-host, Jacinta Siobhan and Derek Thompson. So guys, listen. Things that matter is really important to the world. Sort of like the hot topics, right? So this little box right here, these are people who've sent things that matter. So our job is to talk about these things that matter because they want to know what we think about these things, right? So Derek, would you do me the honors? Let's pick the subject for this week.
Not a problem.
I really wanted a bingo thing, you know.
All right. No, that's all good.
Oh, bring it next time.
Okay.
All right, let's see.
Oh,
I'm not
boy.
supposed to look, right?
Nope.
Okay. All right, let's see. All right.
Read them in
We
weeks, son.
have foster children.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
what I know about.
Okay, then you lead the pack.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think about foster children are grown-ups who were in the foster care system, and a lot of the problems that they face when they turn 18 and they age out of the system. I've worked with a few people who didn't have an ID, didn't have a social security card, didn't have a birth certificate, and I think we have to have programs after they age out. I mean, we have some programs, but I think we need to do better in supporting adults who age out of the foster care system.
Celebrating Black History Month. This week in Black History. February 6th, 1961. The Civil Rights Jail-In movement began when 9 African American students that became known as the Friendship 9 in Rock Hill, South Carolina, were arrested for requesting service at a segregated lunch counter. They requested jail time rather than pay fines, challenging the legitimacy of the laws of their time. 1986, figure skater Debbie Thomas became the first African American to win the women's singles of the U.S. National Figure Skating Championship competition and was a pre-med student at Stanford University.
Black History Month is more than just a celebration. It's a chance to remind us and learn about those who broke the color barriers so that way we could have the better opportunities that we have today. Thomas Jennings, born January 1st, 1791, died February 13th, 1856. Thomas Jennings was the first African American patent holder in history. He was granted the patent in 1821 for his method of dry cleaning. This method was called dry scouring and is what led to today's dry cleaning methods. Jennings was a skilled tailor and a successful businessman in New York City. What led him to this invention was his disappointment in the conventional methods of cleaning, so he experimented until he found a successful method that would not harm clothes. So to reiterate, a black man is the reason that we have such an efficient way of dry cleaning today. Jennings' invention, along with his business expertise, yielded a significant personal fortune, much of which he put into the abolitionist movement in the United States. Jack Johnson, born March 31st, 1878, died June 10th, 1946. Jack Johnson was the first black world heavyweight boxing champion at the height of the Jim Crow era. Jack Johnson was one of the toughest boxers who ever lived. In his nearly 50-year career, he was only knocked out 3 times. He started off as a sparring partner, but quickly rose the ranks, and in his very first professional fight, he knocked out his opponent, Jim Rocks. In 1906, after knocking out Bob Fitzsimmons, a white former champion, he became a contender for the world champion. It took 2 years because of the color of his skin for someone to give him the opportunity at the title, and Johnson did not let that opportunity go to waste. He pulverized his opponent, Tommy Burns, while he taunted him the entire match. For years, Johnson paraded his fame and accolades around, and this angered many who thought he was acting above his class and race. This triggered a movement to begin to attempt to recruit various great white hopes, as they called, to take back the title. This did not work. Jack Johnson had an illustrious career despite being hated by many and going through several trials and tribulations that he experienced. Before his death in 1946, he was able to run a restaurant, he appeared in movies, he even fought bulls and wrestlers, wrote memoirs, appeared with a flea circus, patented a ranch, and gave many lectures. Jack Johnson was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1993.
Word was purchased by Jesse B. Blayton, a bank president and professor at Atlanta University. Blayton hired his son, Jesse Blayton Jr., as station manager. The 1,000-watt station was purchased for $50,000.
Gordon Park has had a prolific career as a world-famous photographer for Life magazine, as a best-selling novelist, and as a composer and poet and pianist. He is most famous for his poignant pictures of racism and poverty, and in film for directing the 1970s classic Shaft.
Gordon Parks was the first African American to produce and direct major motion pictures. He was also known for his documentary photojournalism in the 1940s through the 1970s, particularly in issues of civil rights and poverty among African Americans and in glamour photography.
Garland Gilchrist II is currently serving as the 64th Lieutenant Governor of Michigan. He is the first African American to serve as the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan since 2019. Wesley Moore is currently serving as the 63rd Governor of Maryland since 2023. He is the first black governor of this state.
Stay tuned for more of Ask the Messengers.
And coming up, remembering Dr. Calvin Trent Jr. Dr. Calvin Trent was a lifelong Detroiter who was always committed to his family, his community, and those suffering from addiction and mental illness. He was a boots-on-the-ground advocate who fought for how anyone suffering from the disease of addiction is viewed and treated. On March 28, 2020, we lost Dr. Trent. We will forever be indebted to him for his many tireless efforts of building communities of recovery. His legacy will forever be remembered, thanks to those who continue to show the world that recovery is possible.
My name is Floyd White. I'm the CEO of the Recovery Community Center. I also work on the board of REAL. I'm also a member of FAN Detroit. I'm a vice president of FAN Detroit, and I've been working in recovery field for the last 30 years, off and on, but more intensely in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm here really to talk about my association with Dr. Trent, or more so my friendship with Dr. Trent. Dr. Trent was a man that I heard of when I first came into recovery. He had a treatment center on Woodward and Calvert, somewhere around there. And I heard his name, Dr. Trent, over and over again. And everybody talked about Dr. Trent, and I didn't know him. In his last days, we were trying to figure out he was having some problems with the cough he couldn't get rid of. And the doctors didn't know what was going on with him. And so we would talk a lot. And at that time, COVID came out, and I ended up in the hospital with COVID for a week, and we talked every day. And that's when he let me know that he had cancer, which is a shock to me. That's what the cough turned out to be, because he smoked for some years, but he had not smoked for about 20 years. So, and he was health conscious, a vegetarian. I don't know what to say. And I talked to him, and he felt pretty much satisfied with his life. I don't know if you guys would know that he told anybody else, but he told me he was pretty much satisfied, and that he had done his job. And I agree with him, because I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it at that time. So we had talks of that nature. And he also always was in a good mood, no matter what was going on, he faced it. And I admired that strength in him. But Dr. Trent was a real good friend, would be sorely missed. We dedicated the East Grand Boulevard location in his name after he passed. But he worked on all these boards, and he put together so many things and events for us that he's been missed sorely, especially with REAL organization. He's been missed sorely. It hasn't been the same since he passed on. Neither has a lot of other things in the recovery community, because he was really an advocate and understood people in recovery better than anybody I know, not to have ever used himself. He understood recovering people. And I admired that, and I never could understand how he could, understand a recovering addict almost better than we do, and definitely more so than most of the medical association. They really don't understand recovery like he did, and a recovering person. So we needed him sorely, dearly in that fight, because he was respected. And I remember first getting with Washington when I opened my recovery community center. And the first thing they would ask me when I told them I was from Detroit, do you know Dr. Trent? And that was all the way in Washington. People always asked about Dr. Trent. Anywhere I go in the country, they ask about Dr. Trent. So that lets you know how well respected he was, how well known he was in this fight in recovery. Okay, I also forgot to mention that he was director of the health department for some years. And when people would try to get into treatment, they would have to go to Herman Kiefer, and he was the head of that. And he would bring people into treatment off the streets. You had to go there early in the morning. He would let you in. And he had to understand, like I said, he has a vast knowledge of the recovery process and an understanding that eludes a lot of people in the medical field. So, and that insight helped him help a lot of people like myself.
I never knew that people recovered, because my experience was that everybody in my family who was addicted went to prison or died from their addiction. There was no happy story for addiction in my particular family. But one of the great things that happened in my life was I became acquainted with the recovery community, and I began to see that people actually do recover. Not only do they recover, that they become great decision makers. and great leaders in our community, and we need to encourage that and advocate for the treatment for these people. Because many times people don't realize or don't understand that recovery is possible. When you're dealing with a child or a mom or a dad or a brother, that is exhibiting the behaviors that addicts do,
Right.
because of their brain disease, the lying, the stealing, the cheating, the prostitution, all those things, then you begin to think that this person can't be helped, that this is just going to be what they do, and I just need to divorce myself from them, maybe.
But there is a chance for recovery.
There's a lot of hope. There are hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people who are successfully in recovery and have turned their lives around. And that's a story we don't get to hear as much. And that's what REAL wants to do. Make
Right.
sure that our community, that's why we're here today, make sure that people in our community know that recovery is possible.
We'll be right back with more of Ask the Messengers.
Hello! Black History Month is a commemoration, vocab word, for black activists, another vocab word,
who took their time out to go fight for what they feel is right. Like
Martin Luther King had a speech that violence is not the answer and no segregation.
we celebrate black people that helped us change history.
It reminds us to be strong, even in politics.
Wait. What matters is what's inside of you and how you act to other people.
Doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, you should always celebrate it because you know the struggles black leaders went through in order for you to be here right now.
Even though we may have the different skin color, we're still the same type of people, no matter what.
And a lot of people, they don't see me for who I am. They see my outside appearance, but they don't see what I have on the inside.
It's very hard to grow up knowing that you're black and you have a lot of personal prejudice against you.
I see it on the TV and I'm like, is that gonna happen to my brother? Is that gonna happen to my dad? I always have that in the back of my mind every time that I'm home and they're not home.
Black history is important to me because I have to remember where I came from and I have to remember who came before me.
Because you have to look at the things that Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X did for us black people, so people can't treat us unfairly because they think some type of belief.
Because we are all people, and you need to stand up for our rights.
There's still discrimination. There's still discrimination in all parts of the world, in all parts of the United States. We should still fight for what we believe in. We should still fight for getting what's right.
Black History Month means a lot of things to me. My ancestors went through a lot to get us to the point we are now.
It's because so we can celebrate the people that has changed our lives so we can be free. And what I mean by free is so we do not have to eat at different restaurants and we don't have to be slaved by white people.
My parents were born in Africa and my parents had to deal with slavery. So it's just like sad how they had to deal with that, and I'm just so grateful that where I am right now.
Maybe knowing that what they did for us in the past motivates me to get my work done, try harder, and achieve my goals. And my goal is to become a president, if I can help the community, maybe hire some salaries like teachers, principals, people who do important jobs but don't get paid that well. And I also want to change this world.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Ask the Messengers. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you would like to support our show, please feel free to make a donation of any amount by visiting our show website, www.askthemessengers.org. If you prefer to mail donations, please make your check or money orders payable to Ask the Messengers TV show and send to 18400 Schaefer Highway, Detroit, Michigan 48235. Ask the Messengers is a program that deals with things that help you. Thank you for watching.